1 year after the attack, the Academy held its annual graduation ceremony. Students from dozens of worlds gathered in the main auditorium, the same room where General Korath had held everyone hostage. But now it was filled with hope instead of fear. Jake Williams stood with his graduating class wearing the blue uniform of a new officer. He had grown taller in the past year, and his eyes held the confidence of someone who had seen real courage in action. Marcus sat with the other faculty members on the stage. He wore the formal uniform of a senior instructor, with medals and ribbons that told the story of a legendary military career. But his expression was humble and peaceful, like a man who had finally found his true purpose. General Stone gave the graduation speech. She talked about duty and honor, about protecting those who could not protect themselves, but her eyes kept returning to Marcus as she spoke. The greatest heroes, Stone said to the graduating class, are not always the ones whose names appear in history books. Sometimes they are the quiet people who choose to serve others day after day without seeking recognition or reward. After the ceremony, families and friends gathered for celebration. Jake found Marcus in the memorial garden, where he often went to think about the future. Professor Thompson, Jake said, using the formal title even though they had become close friends over the past year. Just Marcus, the older man replied. You are an officer now. We are equals. Jake looked around the garden, thinking about all the conversations they had shared in this peaceful place. I got my assignment today. They are sending me to the frontier, worlds where the hegemony remnants are still causing trouble. Marcus nodded. Good assignment, you will learn a lot out there. I am scared, Jake admitted. What if I am not brave enough when the moment comes? Fear is normal, Marcus said. I was scared during my first real mission too. The important thing is not to let fear make your decisions for you. Any advice for a new officer? Marcus thought. For a moment. Remember that your job is to bring everyone home safely. Your soldiers, the civilians you are protecting, even your enemies when possible. Winning a battle means nothing if you lose your humanity in the process. Jake nodded, understanding that this was wisdom earned through years of difficult experience. Will you still be here when I come back for visits? Jake asked. As long as the Academy will have me, Marcus replied. I have found my place. Later that evening, Marcus walked through the Academy one more time. It was late, and most people had gone home or to their rooms. The halls were quiet, just like they had been during his years as a janitor. But now he was not invisible. Students, who passed him in the corridors, nodded respectfully. Junior instructors sought his advice on difficult tactical problems. The Academy's leaders included him in important decisions about curriculum and policy. Marcus had become what he had never expected to be, a respected teacher and mentor. The legendary Ghost 6 had transformed into something better than a perfect soldier. He had become a builder of future heroes. In his office, Marcus kept a small collection of personal items, photos of graduating classes, thank you letters from former students, a holographic display showing planets that were now peaceful because Academy graduates had learned to solve problems without violence. But in a place of honor on his desk sat a simple cleaning cloth, folded neatly and kept as a reminder. It represented 8 years of humble service when he had protected the Academy in secret and found peace in simple work. Amanda Hayes knocked on his office door and entered when he called for her to come in. The new security reports are ready, she said, handing him a datapad. No major threats detected anywhere in the sector. Good, Marcus said, reviewing the information. Let us hope it stays that way. Amanda sat down across from his desk. Do you ever miss the excitement, the missions and the adventure? Marcus smiled slightly. I get plenty of excitement from my students. Last week, Jake's replacement asked me if it was possible to disable an enemy ship using only a spoon and some electrical wire. What did you tell him? I said yes, and then I made him figure out how to do it himself. Amanda laughed. You are a good teacher, Marcus. The students respect you. They respect the legend, Marcus corrected. I just try to live up to it. 6 months later, news reached the Academy that Jake Williams had been decorated for heroism during a rescue mission on the frontier. He had saved an entire colony from hegemony raiders using tactics that his instructors recognized as pure Marcus Thompson style. Marcus read the report with quiet pride. Jake had learned well. He had found the courage to step forward when everything fell apart, just like they had discussed in the memorial garden. More reports came in over the following months. Academy graduates were making a difference across the galaxy. They were solving conflicts through diplomacy when possible, and fighting with honor when necessary. The lessons they had learned were spreading to other worlds, creating a new generation of leaders who understood that true strength came from protecting others. Marcus continued his routine of evening walks through the academy grounds. But now, his steps were lighter, his expression more peaceful. He had found something that all the military glory in the galaxy could not provide: the satisfaction of making the future better. In the memorial garden, new names had been added to honor recent heroes, but Marcus noticed that many of the new entries emphasized service and sacrifice rather than victory and conquest. The academy was teaching students to value life over winning, protection over domination. Commander Vex often joined Marcus on these evening walks. The draconian officer had become a close friend, bonded by their shared experience during the attack. "Do you think we are making a difference?" Vex asked one evening as they looked at the holographic displays. "Look around," Marcus replied. "A year ago, this place was attacked because someone wanted to destroy the idea of cooperation between species. Now we have students from 40 different worlds learning to work together. I would say we are making a difference. And you? Are you happy with your choice to stay?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, thinking about the question. "I spent 20 years as Ghost 6, saving the galaxy one mission at a time. Now I spend my days teaching people how to save themselves. Both are important, but this feels more lasting." As the months passed, Marcus settled deeper into his role as teacher and mentor. He developed new courses on tactical thinking and ethical decision-making. He advised the academy leadership on security matters and helped design better training programs. But most importantly, he continued to spend time in the memorial garden, talking with students about courage and responsibility. Some conversations were serious discussions about military strategy. Others were simple talks about homesickness and the challenges of growing up far from family. Marcus had learned that teaching was not just about sharing knowledge. It was about helping young people find their own strength and wisdom. Every student, who graduated with confidence and integrity, was a victory more meaningful than any military mission he had ever completed. 3 years after the attack, the academy held a special ceremony to honor Marcus for his service as an instructor. Delegates from across the galaxy attended, including many of his former students who were now serving as officers on distant worlds. Marcus stood before the assembled crowd, uncomfortable with the attention, but grateful for the recognition. When asked to speak, he kept his words simple and direct. "I have been many things in my life," Marcus said. "A soldier, a janitor, a teacher. Each role taught me something different about service and sacrifice. But the most important lesson I learned is this: it does not matter what job you have or what title people give you. What matters is that you use whatever abilities you have to make life better for others." The audience applauded, but Marcus was already thinking about his next class, his next conversation with a struggling student, his next chance to help someone find their courage. That evening, Marcus sat alone in the memorial garden as the 3 moons of Kepler Station rose in the sky. The academy was quiet around him, filled with sleeping students who were dreaming of becoming heroes. Marcus Thompson, the man who had been Ghost 6, the academy janitor, and now Professor Thompson, smiled as he looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, his former students were protecting innocent people and building a more peaceful galaxy. He had finally found the perfect mission, one that would never end, but would make the galaxy a little bit better every single day. Story. Ghost had found his purpose. The janitor had found his calling. The teacher had found his home. 3 months had passed since humanity received their provisional membership in the Galactic Council. Jake Morrison spent most of his time in meeting rooms, trying to understand complex alien politics. Dr. Lisa Chen worked day and night, studying, alien cultures and languages. Commander Mike Torres coordinated with various alien military officers, though most of them treated him like a curious child playing soldier. Life on Nexus Prime had settled into a routine of small humiliations and tiny victories. The humans had learned to navigate the massive station, found the best places to eat food that would not make them sick, and even made a few cautious friendships with some of the more open-minded aliens. Then everything changed. Captain Sarah Mitchell was having a perfectly normal day aboard the human exploration vessel Endeavour when the emergency signal came through. Her ship was 3 days out from the Valorian colony world of Astros 7, conducting routine mapping of a nearby asteroid field. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal," called out Lieutenant Tom Bradley from the communications station. His young face looked worried. "It's coming from Astros 7. Sarah moved to his station and looked at the display. The signal was weak and broken, cutting in and out like someone was trying to send a message while running for their life. "Can you clean it up?" she asked. Tom's fingers moved quickly over his controls. After a few moments, a voice came through the speakers. It was speaking in the musical Valorian language, but the tone was pure terror. "Help us. They came from nowhere. Ships like nothing we have seen. Everyone is. The screaming has stopped. If anyone receives this message, do not come here, do not." The signal went dead. Sarah stared at the silent speakers for a long moment. In her 5 years as captain, she had responded to distress calls before: equipment failures, medical emergencies, even pirate attacks. But something about this message made her skin crawl. "Set course for Astro 7 maximum speed," she ordered, "and send a message to Nexus Prime. Tell them we're investigating a possible attack on a Valorian colony." The Endeavour reached Astro 7 18 hours later. What they found there would haunt Sarah's dreams for the rest of her life. The planet looked normal from space. The cities were intact, their lights still shining. The orbital stations were still in their proper positions. Everything appeared peaceful and undisturbed. But when Sarah's team scanned for life signs, they found nothing. Not a single living creature anywhere on the planet's surface. "That can't be right," said Dr. Emily Watson, the ship's science officer. "Astro 7 had over 2 million inhabitants. The scanners must be malfunctioning." But repeated scans showed the same impossible result. The planet was completely empty of life. Sarah took a landing party down to the largest city. They walked through streets that should have been busy with Valorian citizens going about their daily lives. Instead, they found empty buildings, abandoned vehicles, and meals left half-finished on tables. "It's like everyone just disappeared," whispered Lieutenant Bradley, his voice echoing strangely in the empty streets. Sarah picked up a Valorian communication device from a sidewalk cafe. It was still working, still connected to the planetary network. But there was no one left to use it. "Captain," Dr. Watson called out from across the square. "You need to see this." Sarah walked over to where the science officer was kneeling beside what looked like a large burn mark in the ground. But as she got closer, she realized it was not a burn mark at all. It was a footprint. Something huge had stepped here, leaving an impression in the solid stone. The footprint was roughly the shape of a human foot, but much larger. It was nearly 3 feet long and showed signs of claws at the toes. Whatever made it had to be at least 8 feet tall. "There are more over here," called another team member. "Lots more." They followed the trail of footprints through the city. The prints were everywhere, as if dozens of these creatures had walked through every street, entered every building, searched every corner. But there were no bodies, no signs of struggle, no indication of what had happened to the people who lived here. Sarah's team spent 2 full days on the planet, searching for any clue about what had occurred. They found the same pattern everywhere they looked: empty buildings, abandoned possessions, and those strange footprints in the stone. When they finally returned to space, Sarah immediately sent a full report to both the Valorian High Command and Nexus Prime. She described everything they had found, including detailed scans of the mysterious footprints. The response from the Valorian government was swift and panicked. High Consul Theron himself contacted Sarah directly. his usually smooth voice shaking with emotion. "Captain Mitchell, are you certain there were no survivors? No one hiding anywhere on the planet?" "I'm sorry, High Consul. Our scans were thorough. The planet is completely empty." There was a long silence on the communication channel. When Theron spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "This is the third colony we have lost in 2 weeks. Always the same pattern. No warning, no survivors, no explanation." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "Third colony? Astro 7 was just the latest. Before that, we lost New Valoria and Skyreach Station. In each case, our people simply vanished." Back on Nexus Prime, emergency sessions were already beginning. Ambassador Jake Morrison found himself called to more meetings in 1 week than he had attended in the previous 3 months. But now, instead of being ignored or mocked, the alien representatives actually listened when he spoke. The situation was getting worse by the day. Reports came in from across the galaxy of similar attacks. The Nixari lost 2 border stations and a research facility. The Helixians reported that 3 of their trade convoys had disappeared without a trace. Dr. Lisa Chen worked frantically to analyze all the available information. She studied the reports from destroyed colonies, examined the few blurry images of the attacking ships, and tried to find patterns in the chaos. "They're not random," she told Jake during one of their late-night strategy sessions. "The attacks are carefully planned. Whatever is doing this, they study their targets first." "What do we know about these things?" Jake asked. Lisa pulled up a holographic display showing all the confirmed sightings. The survivors who escaped the initial attacks described creatures, about 8 feet tall, heavily armored with natural weapons like claws and teeth. Their ships use technology we don't recognize, and they seem to be incredibly strong and fast. Commander Mike Torres had been quietly listening to their conversation. Now he spoke up with a grim expression on his face. "They're hunters," he said simply. "Everything about their behavior suggests they're hunting for sport, not conquest. They take the strongest prey and leave everything else untouched." The 3 humans looked at each other in the dim light of their quarters. Outside their window, Nexus Prime continued its slow rotation, full of aliens who were beginning to realize that their advanced civilization might not protect them from whatever was stalking the galaxy. On the outer rim, more worlds went silent. More colonies disappeared. More ships vanished into the darkness between stars. The galaxy's greatest predators had awakened, and they were hungry for a challenge that only the strongest could provide. The question that no one dared ask was simple. In a universe full of civilized, peaceful species, who would be strong enough to interest these cosmic hunters? The answer was coming faster than anyone expected, and it would change everything. The galaxy thought it knew about strength, survival, and what it truly meant to be a predator among the stars. The emergency meeting took place in the deepest part of Nexus Prime, behind doors that could stop a battleship's weapons. Ambassador Jake Morrison had never seen the secret council chamber before. The room was smaller than the main assembly hall, with heavy walls and no windows. Everything about it said that whatever happened here was too dangerous for the rest of the galaxy to know. Jake walked into the chamber with Dr. Lisa Chen and Commander Mike Torres behind him. For the first time since arriving at Nexus Prime, they were not being led to their seats by alien escorts. Instead, High Consul Theron himself had come to their quarters to ask them to attend. The change in the alien leaders was shocking. High Consul Theron's golden feathers looked dull and ruffled. His bright blue eyes darted nervously around the room. The elegant, confident being who had mocked humanity just months ago now looked like a frightened bird. Prime Engineer Katos sat, hunched over his section of the table, all 4 of his arms moving constantly as he worked on multiple data pads at once. His large black eyes were red from lack of sleep. The clicking sounds he made while thinking had become rapid and desperate. Merchant Lord Vex looked the worst of all. His purple skin had turned almost gray, and his 3-fingered hands shook slightly as he spoke. The smile that used to play across his thin lips was nowhere to be seen. "Thank you for coming," Theron said to the humans. His musical voice was hoarse and tired. "We need your help." Jake blinked in surprise. These were the same beings who had treated humans like amusing pets just a few months ago. Now they were asking for help with something their advanced technology could not handle. Of course, Jake replied carefully. What can humanity do to assist the council? Theron activated a holographic display in the center of the table. Images of destroyed colonies appeared one after another. Empty cities, abandoned space stations, and those strange footprints that Captain Sarah Mitchell had found on Astros 7. 18 colonies, Theron said, his voice barely above a whisper. 7 space stations, 43 cargo convoys, all gone without a trace in the past 6 weeks. Prime Engineer Katos looked up from his data pads. Our best military ships cannot even scratch their armor. Our most advanced weapons pass through their shields like they do not exist. Our defensive systems fail completely against their technology. Worse than that, added Merchant Lord Vex. They are getting bolder. At first, they only attacked the outer rim colonies, remote places with small populations. Now they are moving toward the core worlds. Lisa leaned forward, studying the holographic display. Have you tried to communicate with them? Send any kind of message? The 3 alien leaders exchanged glances that mixed horror with embarrassment. Communication? Theron repeated. Dr. Chen, these creatures do not communicate. They appear from nowhere, destroy everything living, and disappear. There is no negotiation, no demands, no explanation. They simply kill. Everything living, Katos emphasized. People, animals, plants, even microorganisms. They strip entire worlds of all biological life. But they leave the buildings standing, the technology working, the infrastructure intact. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. They are not conquering, they are hunting. Mike Torres had been quietly studying the tactical displays. Now he spoke up, his military training evident in his analysis. These attack patterns, he said, pointing to the hologram, they are not random. They hit the strongest targets first, the most heavily defended colonies, the most advanced space stations. They are looking for the best fight they can find. The alien leaders stared at him with expressions of growing horror. That makes no sense, Theron protested. Why would anyone attack the strongest targets first? Standard military doctrine says to eliminate the weakest enemies before engaging stronger ones. Not if you are hunting for sport, Mike replied grimly. Not if the point is not victory, but the challenge itself. Lisa was working frantically on her data pad, cross-referencncing attack patterns with colonial populations and defensive capabilities. Commander Torres is right, she said, looking up from her calculations. Every single target was chosen because it would put up a good fight. They are not interested in easy victories, they want worthy opponents. Prime Engineer Katos made a rapid clicking sound that indicated extreme distress. If that is true, then our defensive strategies are completely wrong. We have been trying to make ourselves harder targets, which only makes us more attractive to these hunters. Merchant Lord Vex slumped in his chair. 3 months ago, I would have laughed at humans for suggesting something so primitive. Now I'm beginning to think that your primitive instincts might be the only thing that can save us. Jake looked around the table at the desperate alien faces. These beings had technology that seemed like magic to humans. They had conquered space travel when Earth was still stuck in the Stone Age. Their medical knowledge could cure diseases that would kill millions of humans. Their energy systems could power entire star systems, but none of that mattered against an enemy that hunted for pleasure rather than conquest. What exactly are you asking us to do? Jake said finally. Theron straightened up slightly, some of his old dignity returning to his voice. We want humanity to take command of our combined military forces. Your species understands conflict in ways that we have forgotten. Perhaps your more aggressive nature can find solutions that our civilized minds cannot. The request hung in the air like a physical presence. Jake looked at his 2 companions, seeing his own thoughts reflected in their faces. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy were asking the species they had mocked as primitive to save them from something their technology could not touch. We will need complete access to all your military resources, Mike said, his voice steady and professional. Full tactical information about the enemy. and the authority to make decisions, without having to ask permission from committees. Done, all three alien leaders said at the same time. Lisa was still studying her datapad. I want to try something different first. Before we start planning military operations, I want to attempt direct contact with these hunters. The silence in the room was so complete that Jake could hear the air recycling systems humming in the walls. Contact? Theron whispered. Dr. Chen, nothing that has tried to communicate with these creatures has survived. Maybe nothing has tried to communicate. In the right way, Lisa replied. You have been treating them like a civilized species, sending diplomatic messages, offering negotiations, trying to appeal to reason. But if they are hunters, they might respond better to a different kind of approach. What kind of approach? Katos asked, though his tone suggested he was afraid of the answer. Challenge them, Lisa said simply. Speak to them in the only language they seem to understand, the language of strength, conflict, and worthy opponents. Jake felt his heart start beating faster. The idea was either brilliant or completely insane, and he was not sure which. You want to deliberately provoke the most dangerous predators in the galaxy? Vex asked, his voice climbing toward panic. I want to talk to them as equals, Lisa corrected. Every species in this galaxy has treated them as monsters to be feared or problems to be solved. What if someone approached them as fellow hunters instead? The alien leaders looked at each other with expressions that mixed hope with terror. After months of failing against an enemy they could not understand, humanity was offering to try something that no civilized species would even consider. Jake took a deep breath and made the decision that would change the course of galactic history. We'll try Dr. Chen's approach first, he said. But we will also prepare for war in case diplomacy fails. High Consul Theron nodded slowly. Captain Sarah Mitchell is already preparing for another encounter with the hunters. Perhaps she could carry out this direct communication attempt. As the meeting ended and the humans prepared to leave, Jake could not shake the feeling that they were about to discover something that would change not just the current crisis, but humanity's place in the galaxy forever. The hunters were coming, and for the first time, someone was planning to meet them not as prey, but as fellow predators ready for the ultimate conversation between apex species. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, watching the long-range sensors as they approached the Kepler system. 3 days ago, the Helixian trade station there had gone silent. According to the pattern Dr. Chen had identified, this meant the hunters were still in the area, probably examining their latest conquest. Contact in 15 minutes, reported Lieutenant Tom Bradley from his station. I'm picking up multiple unknown energy signatures near the station. Sarah nodded, her mouth dry despite her attempts to stay calm. Behind her stood Commander Mike Torres, who had insisted on joining this mission personally. In the ship's conference room, a full diplomatic team waited, including 2 Valorian observers and 1 very nervous Nexari engineer. But this was not going to be a normal diplomatic mission. Instead of the usual protocols and careful language, Sarah had orders to try something that had never been attempted in galactic history. She was going to speak to apex predators as an equal. There, Torres pointed at the main display. Dead, ahead. Sarah saw them and felt her breath catch in her throat. 5 ships unlike anything in known space hung near the destroyed trade station. They were not the clean geometric shapes that civilized species preferred. Instead, they looked organic and dangerous, like they had been grown rather than built. Dark metal curved and twisted into forms that suggested barely contained violence. They are beautiful, whispered Dr. Watson from the science station. Terrible, but beautiful. Sarah activated the ship's communication system. Her heart was pounding, but her voice remained steady. Unknown vessels, this is Captain Sarah Mitchell of the human ship Endeavor. We are a new species in this galaxy. We wish to speak with you. The response was immediate and shocking. Instead of the expected attack or silence, one of the alien ships sent back a transmission. The voice that came through the speakers was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together, but it was speaking English. Humans, the voice said slowly as if testing the word. You are the small ones the prey species brought to their nest. Sarah exchanged glances with Torres. Somehow, These hunters already knew about humanity. Yes, she replied. We are new to this part of space. Who are we speaking with? I am War Chief Talon of the Ravager hunting pack Blood Moon. You interest me, small human. Your scent is different from the prey that runs when we approach. Sarah felt a chill at the casual way he referred to the other galactic species as prey, but she pressed on with the plan Dr. Chen had developed. We come from a world of hunters like ourselves. We understand the need for worthy challenges and respect for strength. There was a long silence. When Talon spoke again, his voice carried a note of curiosity. You speak of hunting. Tell me, small human, what is the greatest prey your species has taken? Sarah thought quickly. Dr. Chen had prepared her for questions like this, but hearing them from an actual alien predator made her skin crawl. We have hunted creatures many times our size and strength. We have tracked mammoths across frozen continents and brought down whales in the deepest oceans, but our greatest prey has always been each other. Another silence, longer this time. Sarah could hear her own heartbeat in the quiet of the bridge. Interesting, Talon said finally. The prey species tell us humans are young and weak, but a species that hunts its own kind understands strength. Perhaps you are not prey after all. We would like to meet face to face, Sarah said, following her script, to speak as one hunting species to another. The laughter that came through the speakers was like boulders rolling down a mountain. It was not cruel or mocking, but it was definitely not human. Face to face. Yes, I would see what manner of predator hides in such a small form. There is a dead rock between your ship and mine. We will meet there in 1 hour. You will come alone. Torres immediately shook his head and stepped toward the communication console. Captain, I cannot allow you to. Sarah held up her hand to stop him. This was the moment everything depended on. Show fear now, and the hunters would dismiss humanity as just another prey species. I will be there, she said into the microphone. Will you come alone as well? A war chief needs no guards when meeting with equals, Talon replied. If you prove to be prey instead of predator, I will know quickly enough. The communication ended with a sharp click. Sarah looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. They all looked like they expected her to die in the next few hours. Captain, Torres said quietly, this is insane. We have no idea what these things are capable of. That is exactly why we have to try, Sarah replied. If we run away now, we prove we are prey. If we fight and lose, we die as prey. This is the only chance we have to be seen as something else. 1 hour later, Sarah stood in an airlock wearing her best dress uniform and a standard environment suit. She had no weapons, no protection beyond basic life support, and no backup plan if things went wrong. The asteroid they had chosen for the meeting was small and airless, just a chunk of rock floating in space between the two ships. Sarah's shuttle landed on one side while something much larger and more threatening landed on the other. Sarah walked across the asteroid's surface, her boots crunching on loose stones. The gravity was so weak, she had to be careful not to bounce, too high with each step. Ahead of her, a figure emerged from the alien shuttle. War Chief Talon was everything the reports had said and more. 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor that looked like black metal, with claws that could tear through steel and teeth that belonged in nightmares. But as Sarah approached, she forced herself to see him not as a monster, but as another predator. You came, Talon said, his voice carrying clearly through her suit's radio. I confess surprise. The prey species always send messages from safely behind their shields. I am not prey, Sarah replied simply. Talon circled her slowly, like a wolf sizing up potential competition. Sarah stood perfectly still, meeting his alien gaze without flinching. No, he said finally. You are not prey. Small, yes. Weak in body, perhaps. But your eyes show no fear. Your scent carries no panic. You stand as an equal stands. Because I am an equal, Sarah said. My species may be young, but we understand what it means to be hunters. Tell me about your hunts, Talon commanded. Tell me what makes humans worthy of a war chief's attention. For the next 2 hours, Sarah found herself in the strangest conversation of her life. She told Talon about human history, about wars and conquests, about the drive that pushed humans to explore and compete and never surrender. She spoke of persistence hunting, of tracking prey for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. She described human determination, the refusal to give up even against impossible odds. Talon listened to every word, asking questions that showed he understood exactly what Sarah was describing. He spoke of Ravager culture, of hunting packs that traveled between stars looking for worthy challenges. He explained that most species in the galaxy had become soft and comfortable, losing the predator instincts that had once made them strong. Your prey species, he said, gesturing toward the direction of Nexus Prime. They have forgotten what it means to struggle for survival. They hide behind their technology and call it civilization. They disgust us. But humans are different? Sarah asked. Humans still remember. You may use tools, but you have not let the tools replace your instincts. You are civilized predators, not domesticated prey. As their conversation continued, Sarah began to understand something that would change everything. The Ravagers were not monsters or invaders. They were the galaxy's natural cleanup crew, culling species that had grown too weak to deserve continued existence. And for the first time in centuries, they had found another species that they could respect. When Sarah finally returned to the Endeavor, she carried with her an invitation that no other species had ever received. War Chief Talon wanted to meet with human leaders to discuss what he called the future of the hunt. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity was not just another prey species waiting to be protected. They were about to learn that sometimes, the most dangerous predators were the ones who had learned to hunt among the stars. The meeting chamber aboard Nexus Prime had never hosted anything like this before. On one side of the long table sat the leaders of galactic civilization. High Consul Theron of the Valorians looked pale and nervous. Prime Engineer Katos of the E. Nixari kept all four of his arms moving constantly, a sign of extreme stress. Merchant Lord Vex of the Helixians had barely spoken since arriving. On the other side of the table sat War Chief Talon of the Ravagers. Even sitting down, the alien predator towered over everyone else in the room. His black armor gleamed under the chamber's lights, and his clawed hands rested casually on the table's surface. Every few minutes he would turn his head to study one of the civilized species representatives, and they would shrink back in their chairs. Ambassador Jake Morrison sat between the two groups, trying to keep the peace while Dr. Lisa Chen took notes on everything that was said. Commander Mike Torres stood near the door, officially there as security, but really just trying to understand what was happening to the galaxy. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Jake said carefully. War Chief Talon, you are saying that your people have been cleaning the galaxy of weak species? Talon's laugh was like distant thunder. Cleaning, yes. That is a good word for it. We remove the diseased and the worthless so that the strong may flourish. High Consul Theron made a choking sound. Diseased? Worthless? We have built a civilization that spans thousands of star systems. We have eliminated war, hunger, and suffering from our worlds. Exactly, Talon replied, his voice carrying the satisfaction of someone making a perfect point. You have eliminated everything that made you strong. You live in soft comfort hiding behind your machines. You have become pets. Prime Engineer Katos leaned forward, his black eyes reflecting anger. Our technology allows us to live in peace. We have evolved beyond the need for constant conflict. You have devolved, Talon corrected. You have traded your claws for cushions, your fangs for fancy food. A species that cannot fight for its survival does not deserve to survive. Dr. Lisa Chen looked up from her notes. But War Chief, surely cooperation and peace are signs of advancement, not weakness. Talon turned his attention to her, and Lisa fought not to flinch under his alien gaze. Cooperation between equals, yes. Peace earned through strength, yes. But hiding from conflict because you are too weak to face it? That is the path to extinction. Then why have you not simply destroyed all of us? Asked Merchant Lord Vex quietly. Because that would be too easy, Talon replied with another rumbling laugh. There is no honor in slaughtering creatures that cannot fight back. We prefer to let weak species die on their own while we search for worthy opponents. Jake felt pieces of a terrible puzzle clicking together in his mind. That is why you attacked the strongest colonies first. You were testing them. Of course. We wanted to see if any of the prey species still remembered how to be predators. Most failed badly, but then we heard about humans. The alien representatives all turned to look at the human delegation with new eyes. For months, they had seen humans as primitive newcomers who needed their guidance and protection. Now they were learning that humanity might be the only thing standing between them and galactic extinction. What makes humans different? Lisa asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Talon stood up from his chair and began pacing around the room. Even his casual movement was graceful and dangerous, like a hunting cat studying potential prey. Humans still hunt, he said simply. Not with your bodies, perhaps, but with your minds. You compete with each other constantly. You struggle for resources, territory, status. You have wars and conflicts and disagreements because you have not forgotten what it means to be alive. He stopped behind High Consul Theron's chair, and the Valorian leader went rigid with fear. These creatures, Talon continued, they have created perfect societies where nothing bad ever happens, where no one needs to fight or struggle or prove themselves worthy. They have turned themselves into livestock. Commander Torres spoke up from his position by the door. So what happens now? Do you continue hunting the other species while leaving humans alone? Talon returned to his seat, his alien features shifting into what might have been a smile. That depends on what humans choose to do. You have a decision to make, and it will determine the fate of this galaxy. Jake felt his stomach drop. What kind of decision? You can join with us, Talon said. Help us teach the galaxy what it means to be strong again. Show these soft species that survival requires effort, that peace must be earned, that civilization means strength used wisely, not strength abandoned. And if we refuse, Mike Torres asked, then you prove you are just another prey species wearing predator masks, and we will treat you accordingly. The silence in the room was so complete that Jake could hear the station's air recycling systems humming in the walls. Dr. Lisa Chen was the first to speak. You are asking us to help you reshape galactic civilization. I am offering you partnership, Talon corrected. The galaxy is full of sheep pretending to be wolves, but humans might actually be wolves pretending to be sheep. Hi. Consul Theron found his voice, though it shook with emotion. You are talking about destroying everything we have built. Centuries of progress, of peace, of advancement. I am talking about saving what deserves to be saved, Talon replied calmly. Strength can coexist with wisdom. Conflict can drive innovation. Competition can create cooperation between worthy equals. But weakness disguised as virtue will only lead to extinction. Jake looked around the table at the alien faces staring at him with desperate hope. These beings had spent months treating humans like amusing children. Now they were begging those same humans to save them from a future they could not face alone. What exactly would this partnership look like? Jake asked carefully. Humans would serve as our voice in civilized space, Talon explained. You understand both worlds, the hunt and the nest. You could help guide the weak species towards strength without destroying them completely. Those who prove worthy would be protected. Those who remain weak would face the consequences. You are asking us to become enforcers, Mike Torres said, flatly. I am asking you to become teachers, Talon corrected. Show the galaxy that survival requires more than hiding behind walls and hoping threats will go away. Show them that true civilization comes from strong beings choosing to cooperate, not weak beings afraid to compete. Lisa was writing furiously in her notes. And if the other species refuse to change? Talon's expression grew cold. Then they will learn that the universe does not care about their feelings. The strong survive, the weak perish, and the laws of nature apply to everyone, no matter how advanced they think they are. Jake Morrison looked around the room one more time. On one side sat the representatives of galactic civilization, terrified and desperate. On the other side sat a predator offering partnership to the only species he respected. And in the middle sat humanity, forced to choose between protecting the weak and embracing their own predatory nature. The decision he made in the next few minutes would determine whether the galaxy evolved into something stronger or simply became a hunting ground for apex predators with no equals to challenge them. We need time to discuss this among ourselves, Jake said finally. Talon nodded. Of course, but choose quickly. My pack grows restless, and there are many more colonies that could use evaluation. As the war chief left the chamber, his footsteps echoing like distant drums, Jake realized that humanity was no longer the youngest species in galactic civilization. They had just become its most important. 2 years had passed since the first meeting between War Chief Talon and the Galactic Council. The changes in those 2 years had been so dramatic that visitors to Nexus Prime often could not believe they were in the same place. The station itself looked different. The soft, curved architecture that had once dominated every surface was now mixed with harder, more angular designs. Training facilities occupied entire sections that had once been meditation gardens. The gentle background music that used to play throughout the station had been replaced by the sounds of beings learning to be strong again. Ambassador Jake Morrison stood in the main observation deck, watching as a group of young Valorians practiced combat techniques under the supervision of a Ravager instructor. 6 months ago, such a scene would have been unthinkable. Now it was just another part of daily life on the station. The morning training session is going well, said War Chief Talon, approaching from behind with his usual silent grace. Even after 2 years of working together, the massive predator could still move without making a sound when he chose to. The Valorian youngsters are improving quickly, Jake agreed. High Consul Theron says their parents barely recognize them. That is the point, Talon replied with satisfaction. They are remembering what their ancestors knew, that beauty and grace mean nothing without the strength to protect them. Jake watched as one young Valorian successfully completed a challenging obstacle course. The golden-feathered being's movements were still elegant, but now they carried a new confidence and power that his species had not shown in centuries. Dr. Lisa Chen joined them at the observation window, carrying her ever-present data pad. The cultural integration reports are ready for review, she said. Overall, I would say the transition has been remarkably successful. Define successful, Jake said, though he was smiling. Well, we have had no more unprovoked attacks on colonies since the partnership began. The younger generation of all species is adapting well to the new training programs. And most importantly, the Ravagers have stopped seeing the other species as prey. Talon made a sound that might have been approval. Some of them are beginning to show promise. The Nexari adapt quickly to new challenges. The Helixians have discovered they enjoy competition when the stakes are real. Even the Valorians are finding their spine again. What about resistance from the older generations, Jake asked. Lisa consulted her data pad. About what you would expect. The leaders who lived through the old system are having trouble adjusting, but their children and grandchildren are embracing the changes. In another generation, this will seem completely normal. Commander Mike Torres approached their group from the direction of the Military Planning Center. The joint patrols are working. Better than expected, he reported. Human ships with Ravager advisors are providing security for trade routes. The pirate attacks have dropped to almost zero. Pirates are cowards, Talon said with contempt. They prey on the weak and run from the strong. Now that the trade ships have real protection, the scavengers have found easier targets elsewhere. Jake nodded toward the training area below. And the new military academies? Graduation rates are at 90%, Mike replied proudly. Turns out that when you give young beings real challenges and meaningful goals, they rise to meet them. The old academies that focused on theory and diplomacy were graduating officers who had never faced real adversity. Now they graduate warriors who also understand diplomacy, added Lisa. The combination makes them much more effective leaders. A chime sounded through the observation deck, indicating an incoming priority message. Jake activated the communication panel and found himself looking at Captain Sarah Mitchell, who was aboard her ship somewhere in the Outer Rim. Ambassador Morrison, she said, her voice carrying excitement. We just made contact with a previously unknown species near the Vega sector. They call themselves the Koroth, and they have some very interesting characteristics. Interesting how? Jake asked. They are natural predators like the Ravagers, but they developed along completely different lines. Instead of hunting alone or in small packs, they work as coordinated swarms. Their technology is based on biological adaptation rather than mechanical engineering. War Chief Talon stepped closer to the communication panel, his attention fully focused. Are they hostile? Not exactly, Sarah replied. They seem curious about our human Ravager alliance. Their leader, something called a Hive Alpha, wants to know how two predator species learn to cooperate without destroying each other. Jake and Talon exchanged glances. This was exactly the kind of situation their partnership had been designed to handle. Set up a formal meeting, Jake instructed. Full diplomatic protocols, but with military backup. If they are truly apex predators, they will respect strength more than flowery speeches. Already in progress, Sarah confirmed. The Hive Alpha has agreed to meet at the edge of their territory in 1 week. After the communication ended, Jake turned to look out at the training areas again. Young beings from a dozen different species were learning to be strong, to compete, to push themselves beyond what their parents thought possible. You know, he said to Talon, when this all started, I thought we were just trying to survive. I never imagined we would end up reshaping galactic civilization. Survival and growth are the same thing, Talon replied. A species that does not grow stronger will eventually grow weaker. There is no standing still in the universe. Lisa was reading something on her datapad that made her smile. The education, reports from the colony worlds are remarkable. Academic achievement is up across all species. Crime rates are down. Young adults are reporting higher satisfaction with their lives and greater optimism about the future. Competition drives excellence, Mike observed. When everyone gets participation awards, no one tries to actually win. When winning matters, everyone performs better. A group of young Nexari engineers walked past the observation deck arguing enthusiastically about some technical project. Their forearms gestured wildly as they debated solutions to whatever problem they were working on. 6 months ago, the same conversation would have been polite and formal, with each participant carefully avoiding any hint of disagreement. Even their arguments are more productive now, Jake mused. Conflict drives innovation, Talon agreed. When beings are allowed to challenge each other's ideas, the best ideas rise to the surface. When everyone must pretend to agree, progress stops. Another message chime interrupted their conversation. This time it was High Consul Theron calling from the Valorian homeworld. Ambassador Morrison, the Valorian leader said, and Jake was struck by how much more confident he sounded than he had 2 years ago. I wanted to inform you that the Council of Worlds has voted unanimously to extend the Human Ravager partnership for another decade. That is excellent news, Jake replied. Any opposition? Surprisingly little. The older generation still grumbles, but they cannot argue with results. Colony attacks are down, trade is more secure, our young people are healthier and happier, and we are discovering new technologies faster than ever before. And the military preparation programs? Ahead of schedule on all worlds. It turns out that when young beings believe they are training for something important, they work much harder than when they think they are just going through motions. After Theron signed off, Jake found himself thinking about the galaxy as it had been just 2 years ago. Soft, comfortable species hiding behind technology, while growing weaker with each generation. Bureaucratic governments more concerned with avoiding conflict than achieving anything meaningful. Young people with no challenges to overcome and no goals worth pursuing. Do you think it will last? He asked Talon. As long as there are beings like humans to remember why strength matters, the war chief replied. Your species serves as a bridge between the hunt and the nest. You show others that they can be both civilized and strong. Dr. Lisa Chen was watching another training session below. The children who grow up in this new system will be different from their parents. Stronger, more confident, more willing to take risks and accept challenges. They will create a civilization that can defend itself instead of hoping someone else will do it for them. Mike Torres nodded toward the newest section of the station, where a joint human Ravager command center coordinated security for half the galaxy. And if new threats emerge, we will be ready to face them together. War Chief Talon moved to stand directly beside Jake at the observation window. For a moment, the human ambassador and the alien predator watched the training sessions in comfortable silence. "Your species surprised me," Talon said finally. "I expected you to choose either the hunt or the nest. Instead, you chose both. You showed the galaxy that strength and wisdom can exist together." "Maybe that is what civilization really means," Jake replied. "Not abandoning our predatory nature, but learning to use it wisely." Below them, beings from across the galaxy trained together, competed together, and grew stronger together. The mockery that had once filled council chambers was gone, replaced by mutual respect earned through shared challenges.